Okay, catering for people to participate in your meetings via telecommunication. It's something which I would highly recommend putting provisions, certainly into your board and committee terms of reference, if not your constitution, but the ability to hold meetings where one or two people aren't there, particularly with smartphones the way they are now. The only caveat, they need to be able to hear everyone and everyone needs to be able to hear them, and just having a smartphone on speaker in the middle of the room pretty much meets that requirement. But remember, keep a record of the meeting to say that this person was there via via phone. And the other thing is the ability to use the email for making decisions that need to be done quickly. Just good little process provisions to build into your terms of reference. Okay, reports are not read out, and the little one says, "Slap me when he's done. I'm putting myself into a self-induced coma." It just is it's a regressive thing to do in a board meeting, because what it trains people to do is not read the papers before they come. And if they know that you're going to sit there and read them out, well, why would I bother reading them and thinking about them before? I'll do that during the meeting. So I would strongly encourage people not to do that. The idea is that the reports should come in before the meeting, and they should have the cover sheet, which I'm about to go through in a moment, which allows people, particularly the secretary, to determine whether it's a matter for decision, a matter for discussion, or a matter for noting. Okay, the idea is exactly what I was just saying. The idea is it something we have to approve, so we're going to have to make a decision? Is it something that we need to talk about and maybe give feedback to the person who's written the report? Or is it just simply telling us what's happened and it's a really quick update? Now, the idea is that for subcommittees or any other working groups, they need to know what their job is from a process point of view. Have they got terms of reference, and particularly, do they have delegations? One of the little caveats I also place on it is that membership of a committee is appointed annually. It can be a risk from a process point of view of having people who become incumbent and they just sit there collecting dust on a committee year after year. So the idea is you want annual renewal built into it. So remembering, committees are advisory. The ultimate responsibility rests with the board. Okay, just a quick copy to print off, but basically that's what your board report looks like. The cover sheet is a quick overview, 1 or 2 sentences, and if there's a recommendation, and the idea is that comes attached to every single board report, including the CEOs. I like this slide because it's encouraging people to think about, have we got our noses in and our fingers out, which is the mantra that we hope boards are listening to from a process point of view, or are we really down in the weeds? And that's the issue, that it's really easy for a board to become preoccupied with the work of the CEO, and that the CEO starts telling them about how much money they've spent on paper and how much pencils and whatever. And then, of course, the board start wanting to know how much toilet paper we've got. And the idea is that just completely detracts from a process point of view, discussing the strategic objectives. So don't let the tail wag the dog. Keep the conversations and the reports at that strategic level. Okay, board buddies. Time's going to beat me. The idea of board buddies, and if you go to the Better Boards Quarterly, you can just Google it. I've just had an article published there which explains this in quite a bit of detail. And I think, Pete, what I'll do is put that actually as a link onto the webinar. But basically, there is a cultural malaise, I think, in many boards where they believe everything must be behind closed doors and this sort of secret squirrel type stuff. I encourage them to break out of that mold, and for each director to be allocated a particular group of members, whether they be a national body and they might have 1 or 2 state associations, or however your association model is constructed. And the idea is before each meeting, they email or ring that person and say, here's a copy of the agenda. This is what we'll be discussing and when. Is there any feedback or any thoughts or anything you want us to raise on your behalf? They hold the meeting. They talk about the issues that the members may have raised. And then what they do is they don't send out the board minutes. They send out a board report, which is just a high-level update on what was resolved in relation to the matters in the agenda and any particular issues that may have been addressed from a member specific way. It creates really good flow and good information. And the idea is you're trying to build trust with the members. So I'd highly recommend considering the Board Buddies model. Okay, volunteers, and I encourage from a process point of view, if you've got the luxury of having staff, to have one of your staff members allocated with volunteer management and volunteer relationships. If not, perhaps one of the directors. And it's the idea is to, and Brendan is certainly the guru in this space, but the idea is identifying who your core volunteers are, the ones that are welded onto your organisation, and then how do we use the other group, the peripheral volunteers. Free beer on me if anyone can come up with a better word than peripheral volunteers. Looking for your feedback, because it says what it is, but it seems a bit derogatory, but it shouldn't be. So the idea is, how do we manage, and this is the idea from a process point of view, how are we managing the relationship with our volunteers? It's critical to all sport. National, state, local level makes no difference. We all operate on the back of our volunteers. We need to get that process and relationship right. Okay, policies, going quickly. 3 levels of policy from a process point of view is to identify where your governance policies are, those that belong to the board and guide the board, those which guide your activity and the management, and those which guide your sport, and having a repository for those, and particularly making sure that the sport policies are public fodder, that they're out there on your website. Board charters, good process stuff, because what it does, and you can have a look at this later, it defines the process by which the board governs and does its job. And there are innumerate examples where you can download those or email me and I can send you some samples. Okay, last 2 slides, risk management. The area of risk management is one which most people from a process point of view find staggering. And when I think of risk management, I think of the F word. Not that one, no. I think of actually 7. I think about future focus, which is what the board needs to have. I think about framework, which is what the management need to put in place. Then I think about find, fix, and follow up, the 3 elements of a good risk management strategy. Then I think about feedback, and finally filing. And we'll talk in the next seminar about those 7 Fs and how they relate very closely to the risk management standard 3100. The idea is, out of any risk management from a process point of view, the bottom right hand corner, you're looking for the comfort zone. Where is the level of comfort from the governance and management perspective about the way we do our business? Okay, I'll throw over to Brendan.
Thanks. Thanks, Groves. Before you go there, it's funny when you mentioned free beer. We had a flurry of questions and suggestions coming in. So I think you owe Glenn a free beer. That was a lifetime, was it? Transient volunteers. I had stranger or extra volunteers. That's free beer for me too. I've got a few others coming in, so I might keep a tally of that as we go, Groves. So,
perfect.
Excellent. Also, just on I thought after 20 years I'd seen all the acronyms I could ever see, but I like the short, effective, enjoyable acronym. I might use that, Groves. Thanks very much. And just for your information as well, I have recently conducted a webinar for a board meeting of an organisation in Australia who have a national body, who have state affiliations, who had been previously running board meetings via teleconference, and they're costing a lot of money and very problematic. And we ran it via webinar, and it was extremely good. So webinar is another way that you can run board meetings. All right, thanks, Groves. We'll come back to it at the end as well.